Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. As EU foreign ministers meet in Brussels to set the bloc's next steps on Russia, divisions are already emerging over who could legitimately take part in any future negotiations. Now, EU foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas has rejected Moscow's proposal to involve former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder as a mediator, calling the idea inappropriate and pointing to his long-standing links to Russian state energy interests. Kallas has also accused the Kremlin of using the recent three-day ceasefire announced by U.S. President Donald Trump as a political gesture tied to Victory Day commemorations, while fighting and strikes on Ukrainian territory continued. To discuss the implications for Ukraine, European security, and the prospects for meaningful talks with Russia, I'm now joined by Milan Lelich, political analyst at RBC-Ukraine. Good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Milan, I remember we talked some days ago exactly about this ceasefire. It's been on and off now. If we look at what's happened, basically because of what Trump has announced, from those few days, today is supposed to be the last day. There have been accusations from both sides it's been violated already. So where do we stand with this? Does this have any sort of, let's say, potential of being extended? Are we going back to the fighting? Is the fighting already back?
Well, the fighting didn't stop, basically, especially if you are talking about the front line. The Russians kept attacking Ukrainian lines all along the front line. There were even some attacks, some drone attacks on our cities. So even not in the front line, but a bit deeper, for example, like a drone attack on Kyiv these days, a couple of them. So yes, the overall intensity is lower. This may be marked really, but still, as of now, I don't see any hopes or chances or whatever for the extension of the ceasefire. I'm pretty sure that this week things will get back to what is usual, basically, to the usual intensity of fighting, because Russia, again, as it was absolutely obvious that Russia doesn't have any ideas, any desires to stop the war and get to the meaningful conversations about ending the war. Russia was only obsessed with their military parade on the 9th of May. So this what really mattered for them. So the parade is over the day before yesterday. So I think starting from tomorrow, things will get back to usual intensity of fighting.
Mm-hmm. And also something developing as well. Just now on Monday, we've confirmed information that Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has just now arrived in Kyiv, the capital in Ukraine. I mean, this is also now a country that has really come a long way. Germany is now one of the main suppliers of important military equipment to Kyiv. So what do you believe the meetings will, let's say, result in? Anything more pledges, more hardware?
Yeah, exactly. I think that Minister Pistorius will talk with his colleagues in the government, with President Zelensky, obviously. But this visit was not announced. There were no information about any sort of press briefing, as it usually happens here when some top officials, foreign top officials, come to Kyiv. Maybe this visit will be not very public. Maybe only some official statements will be issued. But nevertheless, I'm sure that very important issues will be discussed behind the closed doors, as Ukraine really badly needs a lot of air defense, a lot of interceptors, and again, there are a lot of things to discuss, despite now we have these 90 billion loan for this and for next year that will cover a great part of our both civilian and military expenses. But still, there are troubles with the United States, so the logistics may be broken because of the U.S. involvement in Iran. There were a lot of reports that the U.S. have used up to half of their storages of this or that type of weapon, and there were also warnings that maybe in some foreseeable future, Ukraine will face really shortages of supplies, that U.S. will not be able to maintain the current pace of the supplies. So again, this is a lot lot to discuss during this visit. Yeah.
And also maybe not discussed directly with the Germans, but generally also back to the ceasefire. One of these ideas that was already talked about before was that prisoner exchange. Now, Zelensky has said that very much he wants a 1,000 for 1,000 that's being prepared and must take place. The Americans assumed responsibility for these guarantees. Given that, as we've said already, the ceasefire has already been broken, we're not sure how much at risk is this prisoner exchange right now?
Well, as with any prisoner exchange, Ukraine is more interested in that than Russia, because we obviously carry a lot more about our people than they do. But luckily, these exchanges still take place. I think now this is another round of game. But basically, the Russians know it that we need that exchange more, which gives them the opportunity to speculate on it somehow, to accuse us of not fulfilling this or that agreements or not filing any lists of prisoners we want to see at home and all sorts of stuff. But again, now we have really, it was not a bilaterally agreed exchange. The US were, involved in that. President Trump personally was involved in that. So he's some sort of a guarantor for this to happen. And basically, there was an exchange. How my source in the government, in the presidential office, told me that basically we really traded our promise not to attack the parade on the 9th of May for this prisoner exchange. So we fulfilled our part. The parade was not attacked by Ukrainian drones or whatever. So it means that now it's for Russia to fulfill its part and to set our people free, not just to set them free, to exchange our people for their people. And again, Donald Trump is the one who is like a mediator in this particular exchange. So I think that we'll keep appealing to the US side so that the Americans push the Russians and make them fulfill their promises. So I hope that some next days, maybe like this week, our boys and maybe girls will be back home.
All right. You mentioned the Milan mediator, as Donald Trump is a mediator, but the Russians seem to also have proposed a mediator. I want to get your sense. Gerhard Schröder, the former German Chancellor, we know him to be a lobbyist for Russian interests. He was already on certain boards in Russia, close to Vladimir Putin. Now, Kaja Kallas, the chief diplomat of the EU, has already ruled that out, saying, I'm quoting here, that would not be very wise. What do you make of Putin's suggestion? Is he serious with this? Is he actually serious in any sort of peace talks in the first place?
First, I'm 100% sure that Putin is not serious about any sort of peace talks. If you listen to his latest press conference, but attentively, not to just separate phrases that were quoted in the media, that he thinks that the conflict is moving to its end, but it's important to look at the whole piece. And he said, really, he again speculated about all sorts of threats against Russia. He also speculated when asked about the western borders of Ukraine. So the question was should Russians security mean that Russia should destroy any sort of threats on the whole territory of Ukraine till Ukrainian western border, meaning the border with Poland, Slovakia, and so on. Putin said, yes, this is what we want. So my takeaway from this press conference is that nothing changed. He really wants the whole of Ukraine, the control of the whole of Ukraine. He is still sure that he'll be able to reach it militarily, maybe with some sort of diplomatic maneuvering in order to ease his military efforts, for example, like what they are doing now with the Donbass, when they really push us and make Americans push us so that we just give up. that huge chunk of territory with hundreds of thousands of people still living there. So it will ease their military efforts to solve diplomatically what they are absolutely incapable of doing militarily. I think that this Schröder idea may be also part of this game, because I think everyone understands that the mediator cannot be appointed by one side of the conflict. In any conflict, either this is like business conflict, whatever. No, the mediator is someone that both, or even more like two parts agree that this person is okay as a mediator, but not someone appoints a mediator and then talks with him. And we all understand that Schröder is so dependent on Russia that he will not just be able to treat Putin like as an equal at the potential table of negotiations. This is definitely not what we want to see, not what Europe wants to see. That's clear. So I'm sure that this idea is no starter. Perhaps we will have to look for someone else.
All right. So thanks for that, giving us the latest. Always a pleasure having you with us. Milan Lelich there, political analyst at RBC-Ukraine. And thank you for watching World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.